All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our series. Today, we're going to be focusing on the protection of geographical indications. This is an exciting, some would say new, but it's not that new. It's a topic that is of great interest and relevance to Jamaicans, not only Jamaicans who are involved in the agricultural sector, but every Jamaican from every walk of life. I'm quite happy to see so many persons have already joined us from not only Jamaica, but in the Caribbean and from the diaspora. So a special welcome to everybody today. Our format this afternoon is going to be quite straightforward. I'm going to give a brief overview of geographical indications, and then Christopher Gentles from the Spirit School Association will speak about rum, which is one of our Jamaican registered geographical indications. And then Wayne Smith from the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association will speak about Jamaica Jerk. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into a presentation right now on geographical indications. I'm going to try and share my screen with you so that you have the benefit of seeing my presentation. Sure. Thanks, okay, so my screen is up now. I have 20 slides, but I'm not going to be going into in-depth with all of them. The presentation will be made available for persons who are interested. You can indicate and we will share it with you. I'm also going to ask you during the presentation if you have any comments, whether you're understanding or if there are any areas of concern, if you would share those with us during the presentation, because sometimes when we get to the end of the presentation, it's too late. Some persons may have left. So in a bid to get good feedback, I'm going to ask you if you could do your comments while we're on. Okay. All right. So before I get into the meat of geographical indications, I just want to mention intellectual property rights overall. So intellectual property rights are the legal rights which result from intellectual activity in the scientific, industrial, literary, artistic, musical, and dramatic fields. And intellectual property rights include copyrights and related rights, trademarks, patents, industrial designs, and geographical indications, to name a few. What is a geographical indication? A geographical indication is an intellectual property right. It basically communicates a message to potential buyers. It indicates that a product comes from a particular place. It possesses certain desirable characteristics. And it's an exclusive right to use the indication. It's associated with products of a certain quality and nature, and that is critical to a geographical indication. It helps in some instances to maintain a high price on the world market, and it adds a really dynamic marketing power to a product. Some well-known geographical indications, and when I stop sharing my screen, I'll show you some examples which I have here in my office at JIPO. We have Basmati, which speaks to rice from the Basmati region of India. We have Champagne from the Champagne region of France. Darjeeling, which speaks to tea from India. Gruyere, which is Swiss cheese. And tequila from Mexico. There's the distinction, I think, between, it says, there's no one single person who can own a GI, right? No one person or enterprise can exclude other persons or enterprises from the use of a geographical indication. Each and every enterprise located in the geographic area has the right to use the indication for products originating there, subject to the compliance with the GI. What do we mean by protection of a geographical indication? Protection means a right to prevent unauthorized persons from using the geographical indication. A GI, I'll use the term GI throughout this presentation, and the GI really is speaking to a geographical indication. So protection means the right to prevent unauthorized persons from using GIs, either for products which do not originate from the geographical place or products which do not comply with the prescribed quality standards, because it's important to prevent a GI becoming a generic expression. When a geographical indication becomes a generic expression, the product can lose its protection. And sometimes, and perhaps in this region, we may all refer to cheddar cheese, which comes from it could be a geographical indication, but it has lost its distinctiveness and is now basically a generic term. The rationale behind the protection of geographical indications in Jamaica stemmed from the need to preserve the uniqueness or distinctiveness of Jamaican products. It was also designed to preserve the local and traditional products and the traditional ways of producing them. The protection of geographical indications also has the possibility and the potential to support other economic activities and also the maintenance of communities. When we speak of maintenance of communities, what we're talking about is limiting the rural to urban drift. Because if you have a geographical indication in a particular area, then there would be economic activity associated with that geographical indication. So there would be no need for persons who are in that area to move from that area to come to city centers to seek employment or ways to earn. It is also the other rationale for protecting a geographical indication is to protect the consumer from incorrect or misleading uses of geographical indications. In Jamaica, we have a law, and the law is referred to the Protection of Geographical Indications Act. And as I mentioned earlier, a geographical indication is an indication which identifies a good as originating in the territory of a country or a region or a locality in that territory where a given quality, reputation, or other characteristic of the good is essentially attributable to its geographical origin. Now, just for the purposes of information, I'm not sure if persons are aware, but the World Trade Organization passed the agreement on the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights agreement in 1994. Jamaica is a signatory to that agreement. And arising from that agreement, the Cabinet of Jamaica agreed to put in place a number of intellectual property laws that were mentioned in that agreement and to amend and improve on our existing intellectual property laws. The Protection of Geographical Indications Act is a direct result of that agreement by the World Trade Organization. So with a geographical indication, you can exclude from protection indications which in their country of origin are not or have ceased to be protected or have fallen into disuse, indications that are contrary to public order or public morality, and indications which have become generic. Now, to apply for a geographical indication in Jamaica, you can be a producer or group of producers carrying on an activity in the specified area that you seek to have this geographical indication. So a producer is defined as a producer of agricultural products, a person who exploits natural products, a manufacturer of products. I won't go into all of those details, but this presentation will be available. So if you're interested, you can indicate and we will share the presentation with you. But just to say, the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office is the office that will accept the application if you decide to register a geographical indication. There's also an opposition procedure that you can use if someone makes an application for registration of a geographical indication for something which you think should not be protected. You can object to the registration. The Act provides for the cancellation of registration on the grounds that the geographical indication doesn't qualify. It really doesn't meet the standard to be a geographical indication, or it no longer qualifies for protection. There's no time limit under the Act for the duration of the protection of geographical indication. This is significant because with most other forms of intellectual property rights protection, there are time limits for the protection. Okay, there are legal remedies for infringement. The legal remedies include civil remedies and criminal remedies. And the civil remedies include, but are not limited to, injunctions, damages. You can be fined and imprisoned. And there are also instances where you may be fined, imprisoned, and there can be a pecuniary penalty where, because you benefited from the use of the geographical indication, there's an additional charge that is placed on you. Okay, so that's the overview of geographical indications and the Protection of Geographical Indications Act in Jamaica. So I'm now going to invite, Christopher Gentles from the Spirit School Association to share his presentation with us from the point of view of the Spirit School Association and the. Oh, okay, seems we're having some technical issues and we're not seeing Mr. Gentles. So perhaps I could invite Wayne Smith. I'll invite Wayne Smith from the Jamaica Drug Producers Association to do his presentation, and then we'll have Mr. Gentles after. So Wayne, are you hearing?
Yes, I am, Lily Clear. Good afternoon.
Sorry.
Do you want me to share the presentation? Can I share screen? Hello? Am I allowed to? Oh, let me see.
Okay. Okay, Wayne, all right, fine. I'm going to invite you, Wayne. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in this.
Sure.
Just to give some background information on Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith was a part, I'm on mute? Okay. Mr. Smith was a part of the original group from Jamaica, which participated in the Jamaica Geographical Indications Project, which was a project with the government of Jamaica and the government of Switzerland through the Swiss Federal Office for Intellectual Property Rights Protection. So Mr. Smith benefited from specialized and dedicated training in the area of geographical indications. And the registration of the two geographical indications under the Protection of Geographical Indications Act is a result of that project with the Swiss Federal Institute of Intellectual Property Rights. So Wayne, I'm now going to invite you to share with us your perspective from the point of view of the Jamaica Drug Producers Association. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Lily Clear. Good afternoon, everybody. Am I allowed to share my screen or do I just speak? All right, I'll just speak. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. The Jamaica Drug Producers Association was formed a few years ago, back in 2014. But let me just give you some background to it. Obviously, our remit concerns Jamaica jerk, anything that's jerk, including wet and dry products. So I'll just go through with you the steps we took to engage the farmers and the producers, and how we came to form the association. So the first thing we did was to engage we participated in a series of meetings put on by JIPO, and it
It's,
was,
we're
yes.
not hearing
You're not
Mr.
hearing me at all? Are you hearing me really clear? Hello? Hello? Hello?
People are here us clearing, but they're not.
Oh, you're hearing me? Okay. So some people are saying they're hearing me. So should I
You're
proceed?
hearing us. We're not hearing, we can hear you, but we're not hearing, can you hear Wayne?
Oh, they can't hear him.
Yeah, they're
They
saying
can
they're
hear
hearing me.
us.
They can hear me. They,
Okay. Can
okay,
you,
fine. Right, okay. They can't see the screen. Did you want me to share the screen? I tried, but I could not. Do you want me to email the slides or just speak to them? Should I proceed? Hello, Lily Clear, should I proceed? They say they can hear me. Hello. Understood. I will let me send the slides to Glennis or Lily Clear, see if they can, because it's not allowing me to share. So I'm sending the slides to Lily Clear. Okay, fine. I'll proceed. Well,
Yeah, proceed.
I sent you the slides. I'll just proceed. If you can, then I'll ask you to just share the slides, because it's not allowing me to, and they want to see me. Okay.
okay, Wayne, we can hear you now. So thank you so much. Can you please do your presentation
Okay.
and give
Sure.
them, okay, thanks.
All right, fine. You won't see the slides unless Lily Claire shares. I sent them to her, so Lily Claire, you can share as soon as you get the slides. All right, I take it that you can see me now. All right, so folks, good afternoon again. I'm sorry for that technical glitch, but here we go. All right, so the JIPO put on a series of meetings with the producers, having signed the bilateral agreement that Lily Claire spoke to with the Swiss government, and we participated in a number of meetings with the producer groups. Our emphasis from those meetings wasn't just on the producers, but on the farmers. So we had a mandate to ensure that the supply chain was involved throughout the process. So we had farm visits, not just producer visits, but with the consultants, we went to the factories, we went to the farms, we looked at pepper, we looked at skelly and thyme. We were out there with the farmers. It's to point out that at the outset, the manufacturers involved in the process were associated manufacturers, Fairy Foods, Goshen Distributors, Grace Kennedy, of course, King Pepper, Taijul. Recently, we onboarded Ashman Foods, and there are other processors to be onboarded as well. So we looked at the farms, we looked at the processing. Along the supply chain, we also looked at the distributors, starting in Jamaica. We looked at the states. Obviously, we looked at Switzerland since they're the second half of the bilateral agreement. And we looked at Europe as a whole, the EU. So, of course, for all of this to be successful, we had to engage the consumers, and there were many programs around the jerk. Some of you would be aware of some of the jerk festivals that are put on, some of the cookouts and the competitions around that. Lily Claire briefly touched on the institutional and legal framework, and for us to participate in that, as she mentioned, it can't be a single person, it had to be an entity. So we had to form an association. In order to do that, we had to perform, you're sharing the screen now, Lily Claire? Oh, nice. Okay, fine. So I am on slide 8, please. There we go. Perfect. Good. All right. So the slide 8, please. You can just advance the slide for me, please. Slide 8. Right. So these are some of the steps, the documents that we had to prepare in order to participate in the legal framework. And the chief among them being the code of practice for all the processors involved. And of course, we had to form an association. And I'll take you through that. Next slide, please. Right. So I'm going to take you through now the development of the COP, Code of Practice. And so the Code of Practice is important because what it tries to do is to ensure that all the processors were on the same page in terms of production. Obviously, there are some steps involved that would remain trade secrets, but we wanted to ensure that we had a standard. For instance, we wanted to ensure that there were some key ingredients that were involved in every single bottle of jerk that you see there. So we defined the scope. We looked at the geographical area because that's what this is all about, and it's about protecting the geographical area. We had started out by listing Jamaica as the GI, but feedback from the consultants in the EU suggested that we needed to look at specific ingredients and areas in which they are grown. And we took steps to identify those areas and to include them in our code of practice. As I mentioned, there are some key ingredients, including the seasoning, for both seasoning and sauce, and I'll show you those on the next slide. But it involved the manufacturing, product testing, labeling, and we also had to ensure that we protected the GI. So we had a clause in there for misuse of the GI. Next slide, please. Next, please. Very clear? All right. Let me go to my slides.
I have shared it, but there's a delay.
Oh, fine. Okay, I see. Okay, fine. All right. So I'll just speak from mine until yours moves. So here is a picture. Here is a picture of king pepper process. In formulating the code of practice, we visited processors. Yes, I see it. We visited processors, including king pepper. They were very gracious, very open to the visits by the producer group, as well as consultants from the EU and Switzerland. And it was important for us to do this so that we could define the processing and to fine tune the code of practice. Next slide, please. All right, I'll just speak. Right, so in the code of practice, we specified, we mandated the ingredients that we wanted to see in every bottle of jerk seasoning that's been protected. And these we listed as pepper, pimento, scallion, and thyme. So these were the four ingredients that we mandated that had to be in the ingredients. And our specification is that at least, I think we had 80% of the jerk seasoning being made with these items. So just to move on, in the control manual now. So having finalized the code of the code of practice, we developed the control manual. This is wider in the sense that it looked at the certification body, it looked at evaluation services. In other words, every bottle of jerk seasoning would go through the same set of specifications and testing. We looked at the governance structure of our industry. And of course, we had to agree to abide by the code of practice to be part of the association. Next. So the next slide speaks to the impact. It speaks to the benefits. And as I said, it's about the supply chain. It's about improving the livelihood of the producers. And we feel that with the GI mark, well, not just feel, but with the GI mark, the livelihood of producers can be protected. Because think about companies, countries trying to mimic jerk, and also going as far as to put Jamaica jerk on their products. There are products in Trinidad. I've seen products out of Canada. I've seen products made in the UK and Europe, referencing Jamaica jerk or having a similar phrasing. And so this is the importance of the GI mark coming into play here, because you can protect your products with this. So the GI mark also contributes to the revenue, the profits of farmers, manufacturers, and distributors. So we weed out the mimics, the imposters, by using the GI mark. And the marketing opportunities that we saw, they're helped through the government of Jamaica, obviously, with JIPO leading, and also JAMPRO opening markets for us. So on the next slide, you will see just some examples of the products from the various producers in our group. And from there, this is the control system I mentioned. I won't delve into this. I mentioned it briefly. These are the NCBJ, the certification body, and we use Bureau of Standards to do the evaluation services. Right. So the next slide shows that we incorporated the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association, and this was done in 2014. So as Lily Claire said at the outset, it can't be an individual, it has to be an association. And so we are showing you proof, there it is, we're showing you proof that we are incorporated. We formed our association after many, and of course, I think we had our first meeting at JIPO back in 2008, and this is 2014 that we formed the association. So it was a great deal of work going into this. And the next slide will proudly display our logo, Jamaica Jerk Producers Association logo. Show you the progress that we have made over the years. And then we have our mission statement, which is to gain worldwide recognition of the Jamaica jerk, and of course ensure that it's protected. It's a PGI, as they call it, protected geographical indication designation. And on the next slide, you will see our banner. This is how we show off to the world. And then just to point out to you some objectives of the association, and that of course is to determine the Jerk Producers Association. That we ensure that the producers are eligible to use the GI, and of course that comes through the code of practice and the control manual. That's the importance of those two documents. Enforcement of the code of practice is another one. And this is the famous GI mark. This is the famous Jamaica Jerk GI mark, and we got that. And of course, Lily Clear and the former ED, they were very excited when they presented the Jamaica Jerk GI. This was in the JIPO office, so it's a very proud moment for our association and for Jamaica. On the next slide, you will see that Marcus was taking all the credit for all the work we did over the previous years. And so, of course, the Gleaner ran an article on it that it was the first GI mark, the first application, but we did in fact get the mark a few months afterwards, which we showed you. Next slide, please. Almost done. Right, so this is the registration certification. So we got the certificate of registration and it's gazetted. Thank you. All right, so here are some examples of the mark being used. This is Eaton. It's Eaton's brand, and the GI mark is there to the right if you can see it. So we have the mark on the label. That's how it's used, and we intend to market this and show the world that this is authentic Jamaica Jerk seasoning, and all others are phonies, fakes, copies. Next one, please. You can proceed. Next one. Good. So these slides really just show the example of how the mark is used, and we just want to thank JIPO for their assistance, and all the government agencies, all the producers and the farmers involved. Just want to thank them sincerely for all the work, the effort they put in to getting us to this point. So thanks a lot, Lily Claire.
I pressed. I'm not sure why it's not sharing.
It's fine. That's fine. This last part was just to show examples of how the mark is used on the labels, and the other slides are listing a number of entities that we are thanking. So that's fine.
Okay, there it is.
Right. This is another example. There we go. This is Juliana, made by Taiju. Right. So we're showing you how we use it, and that it will protect us. These are all the agencies and the people that we worked with over the years to get to that point. And we sincerely thank JIPO, Lily Claire, Glennis, Marcus, and the folks there at JIPO for their kind assistance and the guidance throughout the process. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Thanks so much for that in-depth presentation on Jamaica Jerk Producers Association and the recognition of the work that was done by quite a number of persons for us to get the registration of Jamaica Jerk. Now I'm going to invite Christopher Jenkins from the Spirit Pool Association to share with us his presentation. Christopher, are you hearing?
Yes, I'm hearing clearly. Are you hearing me?
I am, quite clearly. So I'm going to invite you to do your presentation now. And you also have screen sharing, so you can bring up your screen. Okay, thank you.
All right. 1 second, let me just bring up this monologue presentation. Good morning. Can everyone see my screen?
Not seeing the screen as yet, Chris, but I guess it's coming up.
Okay.
Seeing it now, Chris.
See you now?
Yes, it's
All
there.
right.
Thank you.
There. Okay. Good morning. Morning to all the persons in this presentation. I want to thank you for the opportunity from JIPO to share our experience at the Spirits Pool, and just to indicate that who is the Spirits Pool, because a lot of persons, certainly before I came here, didn't know who we were and what we do. So the Spirits Pool was established in 1932 to promote the interests of Jamaican rum and is the official authority on Jamaican rum. The association is owned by all the distilleries. Caribbean Molasses Company Jamaica Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Spirits Pool, and its main function is to procure good fermentable quality molasses to satisfy the needs of the rum industry. Just to let you know that molasses is a feedstock upon which we add yeast to produce rum. Now, Jamaica is globally known to produce the very widest varieties of Jamaican rum, from very light, low ester rums on column stills to the heavy traditional continental flavored rum, usually produced on pot stills. And Jamaica has the capacity to produce up to 50 million liters of rum per annum. Um, so, who is the Spirits Pool? Well, it's the trade association of the distilleries, and as you can see on your left, the Spirits Pool include the Worthy Park Distilleries, Hamden Distilleries, which are owned by Worthy Park Estates and Everglades Farm, respectively. Then we have Long Pond Distilleries and Clarendon Distilleries, which are owned by National Rums of Jamaica Limited. Um, and we have Appleton and New Yarmouth, which are owned by Dairy and Nephew, or the Campari Group. Lily Clear explained what was a geographical indication quite well, so, and I believe that was also duplicated. So I'm gonna skip that presentation. So the journey to the geographical indications in the rum industry was a challenging one, because particularly there are significant differences in tradition and in perceptions of what adds value. So frequently the challenge with GIs is that all the producers have to agree among themselves about what is that part of the production process that makes the Jamaican, that makes that particular product unique and special. So what is it? Now, this was critical in our rum industry in terms of what is the Jamaicanness that made our rum different than all the other rums globally. Now, as involved with geographical indications from the spirits from the days of as early as 2009 or 2008, and I was working at the coffee industry board at the time, and my journey led here. And what this has allowed me to do is compare and contrast the both industries, um, to give us an idea of the differences and what has allowed rum to be a successful geographical indication in terms of registration, whereas coffee has languished somewhat. And the difference is There are 6 licensed distilleries, but there are 20 licensed coffee dealers. Both started on the journey prior to 2006, but and both went on the sponsored tour overseas. But coffee only sold 5% of the production in Europe, whereas the Jamaica rum industry sold more than a half of their export quantities in Europe. 60% of exportable coffee was sold overseas as green bean, and therefore you'd have to add value in that country by roasting or by processing in a location other than the geography, other than Jamaica. Whereas several of our distilleries produce the final product in Jamaica. Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee is owned by the government of Jamaica, but the product is owned by the private sector, and Jamaica rum brands are privately held, with the exception of National Rums of Jamaica, which is owned 33%, 33 and a third is owned by the Jamaican government. And the brand essence of Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee, in terms of what everyone agrees the brand essence, lacks clarity because they haven't gone through the cauldron of the process of making a GI. Because once you've done that, then you need to clearly understand, all the producers need to clearly indicate what it is that makes that particular product special and connected to the geography. And then significant resources are dedicated to marketing of rum, whereas in terms of marketing malt and coffee are some challenges. So I just thought that that would assist us in explaining what's going on. Now, we have gone through the process. The process of creating the code of practice is a very detailed process, and we have to congratulate and give great kudos to JIPO, who led this process um, with great leadership skills and knowledge. And what this involved is you would have engaged representative from each of the distilleries. And of course, after a process of visiting the distilleries, and we sit down with the representative, and we came up with a set of rules for GI, which is what all of the representatives of the time at the time would have agreed to, are the things that make Jamaican rum distinctive and unique. The wash produced with naturally filtered limestone water. That's limestone that's water which would have passed through limestone on its way either to the river or stream. And then the wash is produced. Now, what is wash? Wash is a mixture of molasses or sugarcane juice, or a combination of both, which is diluted using water, naturally filtered limestone water, and then that is inoculated with yeast, and the yeast produce the alcohol, and that flavored mixture of alcohol, yeast, and other compounds produce rum after distillation, right? So the wash is produced using molasses, sugarcane juice, crystalline sugar from sugarcane, and any combination of the above. And then yeast of the Saccharomyces and Schizosaccharomyces species are used as fermenting agents, and the prepared wash must be inoculated using yeast that either occur locally in the environment, prepared yeast, or cultured yeast, but it's never prepared using GMO yeast. Some of the rules of Jamaican rum fermentation and distillation is done within a designated geographical region. Should have shared that map with you. Then there's the aged rums that are stored in small barrels, and small barrels in Jamaica, in this particular instance, are 45-gallon barrels or 200-liter barrels under the guidance of an excise officer. Coloration is derived from oak wood in the barrels. So once you age rum, the rum is put in oak barrels and it's aged over time. And or the coloration is also caramel. Now, the minimum age of Jamaican rums is certified by law under the Excise Act, and it's defined as it's defined by the youngest rum in the mix. Now there are other countries in which the rules of aging are not as strict, and you'll find those countries will be able to blend rums and have the average age of the rums on the age. But Jamaica rum is very strict. In Jamaica, our age statement is very strict, and we use the minimum age. All rums manufactured in Jamaica must be moved in accordance with the Excise Act. I described 10 already. And once a rum designated with the right to use the Jamaica Rum GI is blended, then it immediately loses its GI status. One of the interesting things about establishing the code base over a period of 4 years, and incidentally, even after the sign-off, we are still having some challenges about particular aspects of the code of practice, you know, because one or two distilleries are saying, hey, look, you know, I'm not satisfied with some of the rum rules, and of course, that requires a re-engagement. Here we see a picture of the wooden barrels in which rum is aged, and the rum actually aging in Jamaica and in the Caribbean is far different than aging in the continent. We call it tropical aging because of the temperatures. And in Jamaica and in the tropics, we lose about between 8% in the first year and 6% every year thereafter. But in the tropical countries, they lose 5% and 2% a year. So our aging process is a lot more expensive, but the impact of aging here is 300% more than the impact of aging in, for instance, Scotland or France that has a very cold winter. And so what that does is that a rum of 5 years will have a particularly well-crafted and blended rum of 5 years old will almost have the same quality and would have lost a lot more liquid than rum, than whiskey in Scotland or cognac in France. And therefore a 5-year-old rum ought to be as expensive as a 12-year-old cognac or whiskey, in my mind. Now this beautiful, which looks like a river I used to swim in when I was young, water critical to the quality of rum, and it's what we're saying here is that naturally filtered, limestone filtered water has an impact upon the rum. And what's distinctive, what's unique about Jamaican rum is that it's difficult to reproduce. For instance, if you use same wash, same yeast in a distillery, say in New Yarmouth, and you try to reproduce that very product in another distillery using the water from that other distillery, you'll find that the rums have two very different taste profiles. And that's one of the reasons that we are absolutely certain that the quality of water and the impact of limestone filtration has an impact upon the flavor profile of Jamaican rum, and is one of the distinctive features. Now, the quality of sugarcane has an impact upon the quality of rum. Now, what's unfortunate is we're not producing as much sugarcane as we used to. So imported molasses is used to produce rum, but the subsidiary of the Spirits Pool Association, Caribbean Molasses, company's job is to procure all the molasses produced in Jamaica and import the shortfall to ensure that our distilleries has the adequate supply of high quality molasses to produce the very best rums. And there you see a picture of molasses on the left and sugarcane juice being aged before it is used to produce a wash on the right. Remember that one of the critical things about the Jamaica Rum GI is that you must use molasses from sugarcane, fermented sugarcane juice, or sugar produced from sugarcane in order to make Jamaican rum. Now you see fermentation taking place in a fermenter, and you see those bubbles there on the top of your screen. That's like a huge tank, and the molasses was diluted, or molasses sugarcane juice was diluted to a certain brix. Then the yeast was added, or natural yeast were allowed to settle on it, and over a period of time, the yeast grew and produced a rum. And there you see our stills. Jamaica uses double yard pot stills, and this helps us to produce our unique rum flavors. We also use column stills. And here we see a variety of products from each of the distilleries. Appleton is produced at both Appleton and New Yarmouth. Rum Bar is from Worthy Park Distilleries. And there you see a Worthy Park aged premium product. And one of the issues, just to show you one of the challenges of a GI, is that a discussion on the word premium. Now, we believe that all Jamaican and precious, and we believe it's premium. But the fact is that it's also all unique. But premium has a connotation that we usually associate with very expensive products, very expensive products. But what we may find is that when we open a product like J. Neville Overproof Rum, or Money Musk Overproof Rum, or any one of our Jamaican rums, to a wider market, you may find that because of the unique characteristics, which can be only produced in a very small location, then you'll find that the demand will, and as the understanding is transmitted, the demand will go up. Any questions so far?
No questions so far, Chris. You can continue.
No
And
questions
then
so
we'll
far.
take the questions after.
All right, and I'm very close. So just some of the critical ingredients for success of a GI, and using Jamaican rum as an example. The certifying committee for the local GI is made up of representatives of different producers. So the certifying committee of any GI would be, it's critical to ensure that you have the engagement of all the producers. And then you see the next one is each mark, and a mark is a batch of rum, has to be certified annually by the Spirit Pool, using, in this case, the Jamaica Bureau of Standards and our own organoleptic committees. And what we do is we use a mass spectrometer or gas spectrograph in order to read out the organic profile, the profile of the rum, and then match that with the organoleptic analysis, which is carried out by our own experts. So 6 or 7 very experienced rum connoisseurs, rum assessors, sit around a table, and we use a very specified format to grade the rum and ensure that the organoleptic profile, which is merely the taste and smell profile of the rum is consistent with that which was registered by the distillery. And then we ensure that the GSMS signature is also similar to that. And then the spirits pool certifies that rum, okay? And this is a check and balance for quality. And then there's a database of spectrometer reading, and for each mark, which has a special signature. So, as I said before, if you use the same ingredients with the same equipment in two different locations, frequently the rum is different. Now, there must be extensive promotion and marketing of any Jamaican GI, because what's important and critical is that once your customers see your GI product, they must be able to recognize the logo and must be understand what is it about that product that's unique to Jamaica. Now, and of course, similarly, they should be able to look at a product that does not have the GI logo or the genuine GI logo, and they would need to understand, therefore, that when you see a product like this, it's in the best interest of your country to make a representation, either in the case of rum to the spirit pool or to JIPO, indicating that there is a logo in the mix or a pirate. Now, infringements must be aggressively contested, whether through extracting significant monetary settlements or the withdrawal of the product from the court. Now, sometimes, as Lilike had mentioned in her presentation, some of these cases can cost multiples of US dollars in terms of defending your trademark or your brand or the GI. But what the GI does is that, particularly in the case of Europe, it helps the producer to reduce that immense cost. However, if you have a trademark infringement and you go through the traditional trademark lawyers to get your brand pirate to remove the product, it can be very expensive. Frequently, this intellectual property protection works side by side with trademark protection, and both the organoleptic reading and spectrograph are cross-referenced. There must be a significant amount of marketing to ensure that the customers you're buying, whether here in Jamaica or overseas, understands the difference between the GI product and the product that's misrepresented. Of course, now if you are attempting to produce Jamaican rum in India with Jamaican staff and Jamaican molasses, it still will not be Jamaican rum because it was not fermented and distilled within the specified geographical region, and it was not certified by Jamaican excise. So, for instance, we had a product that we saw on the shelf called Jamaican rum. So this rum was made in the United States, and of course, the label implies it's Jamaican rum. So I imagine we'll be having some interesting conversations shortly with that producer. And there are several rums in Europe as well that we have to take a look at. So there must be safety features embedded in the label in order to trace when the rum was made, because traceability is a critical part of a successful GI. And there endeth my presentation, and you see a colorful description of some beautiful libations on the screen. If you have any questions, I'll be certain to try to answer them.
Thanks so much for that in-depth presentation, Christopher. The presentation that you did and also the presentation that we did really brought to the fore the importance of a geographical indication and how this relates specifically to Jamaica as a location for those designated geographical indications. One other point which I wanted to add, which wasn't mentioned, We spoke extensively about the bilateral agreement between Jamaica and Switzerland, but we also need to acknowledge and recognize the CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Community. That agreement also signals and recognizes geographical indications and allows for the point that Christopher just made, the recognition of our geographical indications in the European Union, which is quite important because basically what we're seeing is we have a ready market that recognizes, acknowledges, and knows the importance of geographical indication. So that is a market that is there, that is open and available for producers of Jamaican geographical indications, and also for, because our participants in this webinar extend to areas outside of Jamaica, and the CARIFORUM agreement speaks to all of the member states of CARICOM and the Dominican Republic. So that is something to note. I'm going to invite those who are participating in our webinar. If you have any questions that you would like to raise, you could do so now. We can unmute you and you can put your question to us. So please indicate if you have a question, and then we will allow you to raise that question. And in the interim, while I'm waiting on that, I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that we have received requests from a number of persons for us to share the presentations, and we will do so with you. Not seeing any questions, but I'm going to invite Wayne. Can I ask you to share with us if you have seen an uptick in the use of Jamaican jerk since the addition of the geographical indications logo? And also, there were some questions in the chat. Have you noticed that there is more use in the rural areas of persons involved in farming to produce the products that are needed for Jamaica jerk? Can you speak to those questions, please, Wayne?
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the questions. Well, the first thing I'll say is that we are actually in the process of trying to get the members to utilize the logo more, and that's one thing that we're trying to do. I mean, we're seeing increased sales because of demand, but I can't say that there's a link with the use of the logo. But I must say the effort is being made to ensure that the processors use the logo more. In terms of the farmers in the rural areas, yes, we're seeing more of that, and we're actually trying to engage with them as well. I think COVID kind of put a damper on some of the efforts, but yes, we have seen that the farmers in rural areas are actually producing more of the ingredients for jerk.
Okay, and thanks for that, Wayne. There are two questions. One is specifically for the Spirits Wool Association, and I'm going to invite Christopher Gentles if he could respond to that question. Someone wanted to know whether the geographical indications logo is presently being used on the Jamaica rum. Christopher, could I invite you to respond to that question?
Absolutely. You know, at this point in time, you would not see the logo in the marketplace just yet, because right now, as we speak, several of the distilleries are making changes to their labels in order to use the Jamaica GI logo. And there will be an extensive marketing program that you will become aware of very early, either later in 2020 and very early in 2021. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture of the logo to show you. That's now evidently, but I'll distribute it shortly, and Lily, I can share it to the group. It's actually
No.
a picture of us still, um, and with this marketing program, it'll be everyone in Jamaica will be able to recognize the Jamaica GI logo on our bottles of rum anywhere you see it. Um, so we're rolling that, and we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to a very exciting year next year to just communicate to Jamaica at large about what makes Jamaican rum so unique and so special. And a lot of people don't even think that white rum is unique or special, but Jamaican white rum, um, among rum aficionados overseas, is recognized as a very funky rum that you get through a very unique production process that's very hard to duplicate otherwise. So even the rums that we consider to be common, everplace, inexpensive, and not precious, um, are really not has not achieved its full appreciation because people truly don't understand the craftsmanship that goes into the production of our lowly Jamaican white rum, as we perceive it. It's a really special process. And all our rums are extremely well crafted and are produced under conditions that would make that makes an absolutely wonderful product. And I'm not talking the product that you swill and 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 you see the man staggering across the road. No, we're talking about how to appreciate a Jamaican rum. A Jamaican rum, a 5-year-old Jamaican rum, as I explained, it's almost as sophisticated a product on the palate, if not more, than a 10-year-old whiskey. The issue is the knowledge to appreciate all those layers of flavor and the work that went into it, and the love and dedication that the craftsmen and the employees and the marketers had to put into that product.
Thanks, Christopher. I really appreciate that. We also had another question, and this one was about the process of registration of a geographical indication. How long does the process take? Well, as articulated by Wade Smith from the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association, for Jamaica Jerk, the process started in the year 2008 and it was completed in the year 2015. I must point out that under the bilateral project that we had with the government of Switzerland, we had the opportunity to, as articulated by Wayne, visit a number of areas where geographical indications were produced. In one area, in the production of a liqueur that is called Damascene, that took an inordinately long period of time because I think the important thing to remember is if there is no opposition, the process can be smooth because what is important and critical to understand is that once you've agreed on your geographical indication, it is all of the persons who are able to utilize that geographical indication who have to agree on what it is that distinguishes this product from the ordinary product. So let's say you want to have a geographical indication for Jamaican cocoa, which is a potential geographical indication. All of the producers of cocoa in Jamaica would have to come together. Well, those who were interested in having the Jamaican cocoa recognized as a geographical indication, they would come together and they would specify what it is that distinguishes Jamaican cocoa from cocoa that is grown elsewhere. Is it the time of year that you plant the cocoa? Is it the time of year that you reap the cocoa? Is it the process of getting the cocoa from the cocoa bean to the actual cocoa as a powder? And so all of the persons who are involved in that supply chain would have to agree. If there is general consensus and agreement among the persons who are producing the cocoa, then the process can be short. If there is no agreement, and the process can take a very long time. And if you have 100 persons in Jamaica who are involved in the production of cocoa, and of that 100 persons, 90 are agreed, and you have 10 persons who don't agree, then the process may take a much longer period than if you had 100 persons who were all agreed. So it basically, the time depends on a number of factors and who is participating in the process.
Really clear. Can I add? Yes, just to give the numbers really clear, because we were all on the tour in Switzerland. The company you referred to, the industry, it was wine, and the folks, it took them 13 years to complete their registration, and we did ours in 6, so not bad.
And the reason why it took so long is because there was disagreement. And so to iron out the disagreement took some time and some negotiation. So that was the thing. So it's important for us. And the thing we need to recognize and acknowledge in Jamaica is that we have several potential geographical indications, not just in the area of direct agricultural products, but also in the area of handicrafts. So if there is anyone who is listening or familiar with St. Elizabeth, you would, if you visited St. Elizabeth, you would have perhaps seen that they are producers of distinctive craft items. They make placemats, they make baskets out of an agricultural product because it is a plant, and they use that plant to make these baskets. Now, because they know what they're doing, those baskets do not disintegrate over time because there is a traditional knowledge associated with the making of those baskets. And those persons from the parish of St. Elizabeth have passed this tradition on over years, probably over centuries. And so we have those baskets. That handicraft can be recognized and protected as a geographical indication. If you have visited a craft market in Jamaica, you may have seen those baskets. We also have hats that are made using material. So that process again could be protected as a geographical indication. And the thing to remember with a geographical indication, which is quite significant for us here in Jamaica, we don't have an abundance of space, right? We're an island state, and so we have a limited territory and region. But what we have is a distinctive product that we can produce that is specific to Jamaica and exclusive to Jamaica. That geographical indication from Jamaica can be marketed in that way. So instead of saying we have enough products to supply the entire world and global market, what we're going to say is we have a special, distinct, and unique product that is limited in its availability, and we're only able to produce 100. So it's a limited edition. And you know, usually with a limited edition, you have a great demand for it because only a few persons are able to access that product. So this is what a geographical indication does for you. It allows you to market your product to a niche, as a niche product, and not as a commodity. Because the important thing for us to recognize is that, yes, we may be able to produce, but we can't produce to supply the entire world. And that is what is one of the distinguishing characteristics and features of a geographical indication. Wayne or Chris, is there anything that you'd like to add? Okay. Okay, I see.
I would just say that it requires a lot of discussion, and you can understand that the producers, the manufacturers may have their trade secrets, but it requires a lot of collaboration so that you build trust in the industry, and you just keep working, keep talking, and it's a process, but hopefully it won't take you 13 years, like the folks in Switzerland, as long as you approach it that way.
Thanks for that. I, I saw a comment about castor oil, but it didn't come as a question and it's gone. So if you could send your castor oil question, but just to say, while I'm waiting on the question so that we can respond specifically to your question, black castor oil is a product, Jamaican black castor oil is associated with Jamaica. For persons who use castor oil, and it's used a lot in the hair care industry, you may have seen, if you are located in Jamaica, you may have seen in our pharmacies and supermarkets products on the shelf claiming to be Jamaica castor oil. Well, they're actually not, in some instances, not Jamaican castor oil, not the authentic Jamaican castor oil. There is a move to have castor oil protected as a geographical indication. And there are a group of producers of castor oil who have been working to have that come to fruition and for us to actually have castor oil that is from Jamaica specifically. So I know that that is an ongoing process. There were face-to-face meetings that were being held and conducted. We are looking, and that process was being led by the persons who are actually involved in the production of castor oil. You're welcome, Ms. Anderford. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns?
Lily Claire, if I might add one thing, is that if when you have the marketing program, after the GI, you also have to take due care that all the producers, that the marketing is consistent with whatever you have agreed to. Oh, look like it closed. Hello? Hello?
No,
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. Yeah, we're hearing you. We're here.
we're
Right,
not
right.
closing it. We just want people to fill out the poll before they disappear. But we're not closing. We're going to close.
Yeah, yes. What I'm saying is that even for us, what was very interesting is a conversation about, is Jamaica rum a premium rum? And because the single word premium could generate a lot of discussions, because of course we have several products within the range, you know. But it just goes to show that, and it depends upon each person's perception of that word, and therefore it's just one of the issues that comes up when you're dealing with a range of, when you're dealing with a group of people trying to achieve a consensus to achieve a mission. It's not ABC. It requires dedication and discipline to keep on forging that consensus. But it gets easier as time goes by.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to respond to the questions. Okay. Okay, there was a question regarding non-agricultural geographical indications, whether there are any applications. There are no applications at present. In fact, where we are right now is the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office had a series of meetings last year with a number of producers of potential geographical indications. The purpose of that meeting was similar to what we had done in 2008, which was to raise awareness among producers. Well, this is a well, we're doing over what we had done before, but we are doing it in a targeted and specific way. So we reached out to a number of persons in the agricultural industry to basically share with them what a geographical indication is and how it could benefit them. Arising from that meeting, there was a lot of interest from producers of honey. Now, persons in Jamaica may be aware of logwood honey, which is a distinctive honey. During those presentations, we also were made aware that there's a bitter honey that's naturally produced and occurring in Jamaica. So the honey producers have indicated an interest in having their geographical indication registered. So I don't want to say that COVID has stymied the process, but COVID interrupted the process. I mentioned cocoa earlier because Jamaica, just like our neighbors in Trinidad and Tobago, and I believe Belize, we produce fine grade cocoa. So we're also looking to have cocoa registered as a geographical indication. And another one, which persons tend to associate with Jamaica, and which was mentioned by Wayne as one of the critical ingredients for Jamaica jerk, is or pimento or allspice. That is another potential geographical indication. In terms of, okay, there's a question here, and this is for Wayne for the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association. Wayne, is it possible for you to say how many persons are actually employed or working in the production of Jamaica jerk?
No, I can't say, but I can check and find out. Do I submit the answer to you and you?
Yes, and then we can share it after.
Right. I'll do that. Sorry, I don't have the answer now, but I'll get the answer for you.
No problem. I'm noted on the straw button. The recipe for each craft or one GI. Well, it depends. In terms, there's a question that said they noted the comments regarding the straw baskets from St. Elizabeth. Given the wide range of craft items, will there be a separate GI for each craft or one GI? Well, it depends. What you have to look at is there something in common? So because with a GI, it is specific to a particular product. On the table here in front of me, I have examples of geographical indications. I'm not sure, okay, this one is a tea from Sri Lanka, right? So this tea would be provided as a geographical indication. But this one is broken orange people, right? So if it was a different type of tea, it would have tea would be like the umbrella, but you have distinctive types of tea. It's just like with champagne. We have champagne. Here's an example of champagne bottle rather. No, this is produced in France. You can only get champagne from France. Similarly, you can only get tequila. This is an example of tequila. You can only get tequila from Mexico. So you have tequila from Mexico. That's the overarching geographical indication. How you distinguish the tequila and how you distinguish the champagne is by a trademark. So you'll have different types, just like with Jamaica rum. You have different trademarks, but the overarching is the geographical indication for rum. So we can have a geographical indication for craft products, and then the craft products can be distinguished by trademarks. So yes, that is possible. Is the code of practice and the control manual made available to all of the members? Yes, the code of practice should be and control manual should be available to all the members, because this becomes the document that they use to ensure that they're satisfying what they signed up to. And then there was another question: how can a young company producing jerk seasoning become a member of the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association? Okay, what that person would have to do would be to reach out to the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association, and I'm going to put Wayne Smith on the spot and say, Wayne, if anyone is interested in becoming a member of the Jerk Producers Association, is it okay for me to share your email address with them? Or,
Yes, yes, give me
or
the or.
you could write me and share with me the email address of the person to whom they should send their indication of interest to become a member of the Jamaica Jerk Producers Association.
Sure. Either is fine, and of course, it would start by our sharing the code of practice and the control manual to ensure that they comply before becoming a member. Either way is fine.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will share your email address with them so that you can do that process.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, somebody wanted to know if they could use the words Jamaica or Jamaican in, well, they said business name, but we deal with trademarks here. So if you can show and demonstrate that you really have a real relationship with Jamaica and your product is Jamaican, or utilizing Jamaicans in the production of that product, and it will not be deceptive, there shouldn't be an issue. But what you can do is, if you want a trademark to be registered and you're not sure, what we recommend that you do is make an application to the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office for us to do a search for you to see if the trademark that you wish to register is a trademark that is available. And you mentioned a business name, which is something that is provided by the Companies Office of Jamaica. And it is important for you to check the register to ensure that what you want as a trademark or a business name is available in both offices, because you don't want to register a trademark and then discover that someone has a business name already registered and vice versa. Okay, there's another question here. Okay, well, this is a question similar to the one I just responded to regarding getting information on the Jamaica Drug Producers Association. So again, I will refer them to Mr. Wayne Smith. And then, okay, there's a question regarding, have young people been inclined to stay in the area because they're able to get decent jobs or remuneration for their work? Okay, that is a question. I must say, when Jamaica started this process with the Swiss, there were two persons who decided basically to use Jamaica as a pilot study to be able to track and trace whether there was quantifiable evidence to show that because of the geographical indications, persons stayed in the rural area and didn't come to the urban areas. That's an ongoing research that is being conducted, because they thought it would be an excellent opportunity to show using data whether geographical indications did stem that drift, because today the evidence is generally anecdotal. But what we have seen in areas with geographical indications, protection and products, is that what you have is an offshoot from the geographical indication. In Jamaica, one example, and this was here before the geographical indication, but just to show you how you can build on it using a geographical indication. There is a Joy Spence Rum Tour that you can participate in, and at the end of the tour, you have the ability to purchase the product that is associated with that tour. So what you have is you have an industry that has developed out of a product. So you have the actual rum, but you have the benefit of being able to tour and to see how the rum is produced, to learn about the whole process of rum production, and then at the end, purchase not only rum, but also craft products. The thing with a geographical indication is usually there's a long history and tradition associated with that geographical indication. So to tell that story, you're going to need persons employed in that region to be able to share the story. Now with COVID, you don't have as many tourists coming in, but for small island developing states, this is an excellent opportunity for us not only to show our products, but to showcase our people and all of the traditions and the history associated with products. Okay. Right, and I'm seeing requests for sharing of the presentation, which we indicated that we will do. There is an online poll which I'm gonna invite you to complete. The poll has been shared. Mr. Hook has uploaded the poll, so I'm gonna ask you if you could complete that. I don't know if there are any more questions or comments. I'm gonna invite Wayne Smith. I'm going to invite you to make some closing remarks, and then I'm going to invite Christopher Gentles to have some closing remarks, and then we'll close off the presentation. So Wayne, over to you for your last words for this webinar.
Right, okay, good. I'm glad you added for the webinar because it's not my last words.
No, just for the webinar,
Chris, I must congratulate you on the getting the GI for rum. And I remember, folks, we had a friendly rivalry while we were going through the process. It was a competition between, well, Chris is laughing, so he remembers. There was a competition between Jamaica Rum and Jamaica Jerk. Chris, at the end of the that's coffee. Right. So at the end of the agreement between the Swiss government and the Jamaica government, we had a closing ceremony, and the challenge was sent out to see who would register first between coffee, rum, and the jerk. So I'm really glad that Chris is now in the gang. So Jamaica Jerk obviously registered first, but I'm very, very proud of Spirit School as well, and the fact that you're also on the mark. And Chris, I'd ask you to send me also a copy of a picture to show the mark, and I'll share that with the team as well. So my first comment is to congratulate you, Chris. That was brilliant, and I enjoyed the presentation as well. And thank you so much, Lily Claire, for inviting me. Folks, I must say that it's a process again, and it's easy to work with documents, I think, or I should say easier to work with documents than people. The documents can be tedious and they are very detailed, but I must say that the most important part of the process is working with people, your own in your organization, but as well the folks in your industry, as well as the agencies, JIPO, and the other government agencies involved. So I'm just saying, to lead your process, to get the success, ensure that you have somebody who is a great communicator, a people person, somebody who can lead and guide you through the process and ensure that you have the success. The GI is very important in protecting our farmers here in Jamaica, as well as our manufacturers, and it protects the livelihood of the industry, but it can also be very profitable for all involved, and it most certainly will generate revenues and of course help Jamaica to come back on track based on the impact on our economy by coronavirus. So thank you so much, Lily. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Christopher, could you share your closing words for the webinar, please?
Certainly. Lily Claire, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to present. To learn from the first runner, Wayne and Jamaica Jerk. I remember that challenge very well. I believe it was at Courtly. And quite frankly, that's why you mustn't be as arrogant as a rabbit, because I thought all of those guys would be seeing my dust, because it appeared as if at the time we were way ahead of them, and we were. But you know what's important is that the producers made the decision, and I'd been working with the coffee board at the time, and there was a phenomenal opportunity there that I believe was missed, and there was a practical reason why they didn't engage, and it was that a lot of coffee wasn't sold in Europe. However, there was a big thing that was missed, and it was the ability for the producers to agree on what was the brand essence of the product, and for and for and for the producers to take charge of the certification process. That's a massive opportunity there that was missed, and I'm sure years to come will prove it. Now, the beauty with it is that in the rum business, having changed shirts and joined the rum business, I now realize that we are at the certification side of the um, the GI process. And at this side of the process now, what's going to be very important is that all the distilleries produce the marks in a consistent and repeatable way. And you'll find that when you're producing agricultural products, your process has got to be consistent and repeatable. And what is very useful is when you have a quality management system. And even if you don't have the certification, but you've gone through the discipline of ensuring that each part of your process is properly um, written down, is properly recorded in such a way that the product can be produced in a very consistent manner, and that your certification and quality measurement systems are consistent. Then you'll find that you'll have an easier time in certifying your products and in protecting the products against brand pirates. Because one of the greatest free adverts is when someone tries your product and it's consistent, and they say, "You got to try this. It is very special." And I just like to say that to articulate and to underline what Wayne had said about the patience that's required and the communication skills to ensure that all are on board with the process. And sometimes the slow runner in the beginning becomes the fast runner in the end. And I think this seminar has shown that. So I want to thank you very much, Ilikir. It was a uh, beautifully produced event, and I'm happy to have been a part.
Thanks so much, Christopher. And just to close, I noticed that there were some questions and comments regarding enforcement. The point that was mentioned earlier, I think, has to be reiterated at this point. The government of Jamaica has an agreement with the government of Switzerland, so they have indicated that um, they will do their due diligence in terms of ensuring that products that are on sale in Switzerland are authentic geographical indications from Jamaica. Under the terms of the CARIFORM Economic Partnership Agreement, there's also a recognition of the fact, basically on the part of the European community and their member states, to recognize authentic geographical indications. There was a point that was made, and I think this is a point that cannot be not emphasized, is you should always put into whatever you're doing with your intellectual property rights the need to ensure that you have somebody who will represent you legally in any matters to do with enforcement, because it is necessary once you have taken all of the time to have your intellectual property rights registered, and in this specific case, your geographical indication. It is important that persons do not just infringe them, but if there is an infringement, then you take the necessary steps to have the enforcement. And in a jurisdiction where there is no recognition of a geographical indication, sometimes, and this has happened in Jamaica's case on a number of occasions, matters can be addressed at the diplomatic level. So it can be brought to the attention of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and they will work with the Intellectual Property Office, basically to check to see, if the issue that is being raised is a legitimate issue. And if there is no other avenue, diplomatic channels will be adopted to address this issue. So I'm going to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon in this presentation. And I'm going to invite you to please complete the poll that has been posted. And I look forward to welcoming you to another webinar that is hosted by JIPO. So I'd like to thank the Spirit School Association, specifically Mr. Christopher Gentles. I'd like to thank the Jamaica Drug Producers Association, their representative Wayne Smith from Grace Kennedy, and also the team here at JIPO for all the work that they have done, to Mr. Bertrand Hope, our network operator, who coordinated the technical side of the activities, to Chantal English, Marcus Goff, Glynis Young, who were all intimately involved in the presentation of this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you to another webinar. Have a safe evening, and remember to wear your mask and to practice social distancing while we try to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks so much for your attention and participation.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.